All right, guys, welcome to Saturdays with Jesse and Pace, and sometimes Jamil. So we finally got Jamil in. We are super excited. Jamil, do you want to discuss what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, man, it's one of my favorite subjects of all time. Some of you guys who follow me on Instagram or Facebook or have met me in person, you will know that a joy of mine is meditation. And I wanted to talk about that today because of some misperceptions about it, some ideas that I think might be a little too dogmatic, right? I want to be appropriate, but I think meditation has a rap that it's very religious based, or that it has something to do with like Hinduism or Buddhism. Of course, they practice meditation, but how can we in the West, how can we as entrepreneurs take, centuries of practice, scientific understanding about us as humans and our capacities and the things that we can do in our minds, and leverage that for our success.
Right.
And so that's what I wanted to talk about today.
One thing, so when we were doing just the tip, which I like, we were doing just the tip, and what I love about these Saturdays is that I get as much value as anybody else does.
Right.
It's people like, man, how do you have time for this? I'm like, this is my time to learn from people that are doing things that I'm not doing. So I appreciate you coming in.
Of course.
But when we were doing just the tip, there was something in there that you said, and it reminded me, I hate to even bring it to this, but it brought me to a golfer that I really like. His name is Jason Day.
Okay.
Jason Day, before he hits any shot, this is what he does. He takes his club in his hands, he closes his eyes, and he completely looks like he's saying a prayer before he hits literally every single shot. And I'm sitting there like, what is he doing? Visualizing his shot. And that's how he became #1 in the world for a long time and has won major championships. And people ask him all the time, he goes, I'm visualizing because so many times, and this is what we're going to talk about today, so many times we're about to go do whatever our job is, and we think about duffing the ball, hitting the ground before you hit the ball, or what if I screw something up when I'm talking to a seller? What if I do this? And you're worried about all the wrong things, and that's what we're going to talk about today is how to overcome that through visualization.
Absolutely. So everything that you just described is the absolute setup for failure.
Right.
Right? When you worry about, I'm going to guff it, or I'm going to, all of the things that we replay in our minds of what could go wrong,
right?
That is the setup for everything that you wanted to go wrong to actually happen. And the reason for that, and you can look at this, we could get into quantum physics and talk about the non-solidity of the world if we wanted to, but facts are, do you know the concept of muscle memory?
That's golf too.
Golf too.
To perfection.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So muscle memory is a real thing. The more you practice, the more you do something, the neurons fire. They learn how to fire new ways. Right. Because you're learning a new skill, and that's becoming a thing. The same thing that has to happen in the mind first, right? In order for your body to behave the way you want it to behave, you had to create the neural pathways in your brain for that to occur. If you are door knocking and you say the wrong stuff when you walk up to the door, the reason for that is because you haven't created the correct neural pathways.
Right.
You haven't visualized the conversation going the way you want to drive it. And all of us in our industries, I do it now. I used to visualize back in the day becoming a very successful real estate investor, a very successful wholesaler. It was one of my actual affirmations, visualizations, what I would see. And again, guys, it looks very different from what I visualized in my mind to what it is today. It looks different, but it's better than it looked in my head because I couldn't fill in all the amazing details of the textured life I live now.
Yes.
Right? But the facts are, it happened. Right? It 100% occurred.
Right.
And today, when I want to, when we're on stage and we're talking to people, I visualize right before we get on stage, and nobody knows this about Pace and I, but we've kind of created a little ritual where we'll take a little walk and we'll pray.
It gives me chills, actually.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things ever. I actually was when we were flying out to Orlando, I was feeling a certain way because of the flight and whatever else, and I was like, you know what, right before the event, I'm going to get calmed down by our tradition.
Yes, yes. And
So what is that tradition?
We say a prayer, but we also set an intention of what we expect to do, what we want God to help us do when we're talking, right? And it's pierced through people's subconscious protection mechanisms, pierced right into people's spirits, so that the things that we're saying affects them viscerally.
Which is amazing, because in that Orlando event, we got a lot of this on video, and Bobby's going to be going through and editing and all that stuff. But rewatching the content, we had a lot of people after the event went out in the hallway and did testimonials of the event and the piercing, essentially what you're talking about. There's multiple people that were crying in their testimonial
I saw that, yeah.
about how this affected me, this changed my life, these guys impacted me more than anything I've even paid for. And it was because, again, talking about visualization and setting up and having an intent of what we're planning on doing.
Absolutely. Jesse, you've been, not a lot of people know this about Jesse, but he's been, semi-pro golfer or pro. Like, what was your...
I had my Class A license, so I went to school and had to pass tests, and I was going to be teaching it, but I wasn't like on a tour or anything like that.
Okay, and so needless to say, you guys are both very, very proficient, very well trained in the art of golf, right?
Yes.
The sport of golf, and so I want to get technical, because I feel that people who have looked at meditation, who have thought about visualization, you get a couple of schools of thought. You get, oh, that's super corny, right? I can't see myself doing that because it's like super corny, right? There's those people. There's some people that are like, that's going to be against my faith.
Right.
I don't want to invite, other energies or other forces to penetrate me.
Yeah.
And then there's other people out there who are like, okay, I'll do this, but show me some evidence, right? Show me the proof. And like a good friend of mine, like you, also, another good friend of mine who I've been doing some very structured
I meant like
meditations
I said
with.
look at me is what I meant you just said.
Okay. No,
I believe in all this stuff.
You believe in it
wholeheartedly.
Right.
It goes back to golf. It's like being present in the moment was one of the biggest things, Pace.
Right.
And it's visualizing or focusing on one thing at a time and being very particular about what you want to focus on.
Well, here's an interesting thing about Jamil, and I want to get into your self-awareness about this superpower. And I talk about superpowers all the time, and people say, well, how do I find my superpower? Is there a list of superpowers? Your superpower is one that nobody would think of as something that's on a traditional list of superpowers. And I've brought this up in front of you multiple times. Your superpower, among many others, but one of the ones that I love about you is that you are the social glue in any group of friends that you're with.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you.
And it is such an amazing superpower. I think a lot of it has to do with the energy and the aura that you give off. Obviously, it's that invisible glue that you're connecting people with. You live your life in a certain way that you're like a magnet towards really good energy. And I think that's a lot of what we're talking about today, and why I don't even think we've gotten to the meat of anything here.
Right.
I'm excited to hear from you about where this started. Were you ever self-aware of that? And are you intentional in being intentional, if that makes sense? Or did you come out of the womb Jay Damji? You know what I mean?
No, I came out of the womb a total asshole. Right? Like, I've been a sweet kid. I was a sweet person, but I feel like I lived a double life. Right, I was the good son, the good brother, the Indian kid who got straight A's, and then outside in the world, I was a total piece of crap. Right, like I was running around with bad people.
Right,
not bad, just like I was running.
Troublemakers.
Yeah, I was attracted to and magnetized to a totally different way of life.
Right.
And I got deep in it. I was not if you were to look at me, say 20 years ago and look at me today, you'd be like, that's a completely different person. Somebody body snatched him.
Wow.
Right? And it's true. You could say that it was a body snatching, 100%, because the person that I think I was 20 years ago is dead.
Yeah.
100%. That
Did you kill him off intentionally? Like, or did certain things in your life just say, you know what I'm saying? Like, was that intentional?
I think aspects of that personality fell off. And I have been resistant to those aspects falling off, so I don't think that I did it intentionally. I think that through more practice and more self-awareness, and I love that you asked where did it begin. It began here, and I know the exact place. So prior to Keegley, prior to really any success, any real success in the business, what I was reading some books. One of the first books I read. And it might be geared for women, but I bought it. I liked the title, and it was "You Are a Badass" by Jen Sincero, I believe.
I heard you talking to somebody about
how
this
you
the other day.
pronounce her name, right?
Yeah.
And in there, she discusses a formulaic approach to living a different life. Like, she described my situation at that time. She described it to a T. I was drinking every day. I had been in a very bad car accident. Some of you guys know about that. I broke my neck in a car accident.
Speaking of drinking, I remember you telling me how you'd have like vodka or something
in my coffee cups.
In your coffee cups.
Yeah. And everyone used to be like, "Oh yeah, Jim," guys, it's actual coffee now. But the thing is that I had broken my neck, right? I for 10 years was on painkillers.
Right.
And so I was in a very dark place, right? I was happy, chemically happy, but I was very depressed because I was killing myself. I didn't feel energized. I didn't feel happy. I loved my family. Like, all of that stuff was great. On paper, I lived a great life. Inside, I was totally broken.
So I guess... where did that shift start? Did Natalie have anything to do with that?
Of course, she's always been a very still.
So Natalie, to the viewers, is your wife.
Yeah, she's amazing. Of course, the thing about Natalie that I admire the most is her pace.
Yeah. She
is the most even-keeled, like, methodical, well-paced human ever. She thinks about things. She never rushes. She's
intentional.
100%, and she only does when she wants to. Right.
I know that. And
yeah.
I appreciate that. She lets me into her circle too, because she's very particular with who she spends her time with, and that may go to how you guys live your life too. Is like,
for sure.
I know that you are so particular about who you're around. If they don't have the right energy, or if they're not bringing you like good vibrations, I guess we could maybe say something like that, you don't want to be around that person. And you'll remove yourself. You're not rude to them, but you remove yourself from situations.
Right.
And like, I don't want to be here.
I'm a little different now. I'm starting to challenge myself, because I used to allow negative people's energy to affect me and then kind of polarize me. I've switched that. Now it's
a challenge now.
Now it's a challenge, because I want to be able to stand in negativity and see if I can transmute it to positivity.
I love that.
Right? So for me, the growth is now not running away from negative situations and negative people, but running towards them, so that I can see if I can, because look, you can change stuff. You can transmute the world. You can raise people to who you are and what you vibrate as. And so that's a process. But again, until you're in a spot where you feel powerful enough, or you feel good enough to do that, then that's when you do it. Before then, run away.
So this has happened probably within the last year or so, because
absolutely.
So what went you from? I guess what had you go from, removing yourself from that to where you're challenging?
Well, we're fast forwarding here. This is fast forward, right?
Yeah, I'm
rewinding back to our first thing, like me reading that book.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So Jen Sincero's book it impacts me, because she literally lays out a formula for how to have a better life, right? And I'm in a dark place, and so I'm really taking this to heart.
Okay.
And did you find that on your own, or did somebody?
Yeah, I'm one of those guys that walks through a bookstore and like. It's like, how weekend Christians will like open the Bible and they'll like do this, and they'll like read a passage or read something in the Bible and be like, that speaks to me.
Yes.
Because it's for me or whatever. Again, I'm not being negative, guys. If what I said is you, then cool, right? Do your thing. But I'm the guy who goes to the bookstore and I feel like what's going to jump at me is for me. And that book jumped at me. right? It 100% jumped at me, and I bought it and I read it, and it talked about visualizing and meditating as she says in her book, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I'm going to butcher her thoughts, but she's like, look, guys, I don't fully buy this, but from Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich all the way to today, there's a commonality of very successful people, and they all talk about coming into union with your true self or your true spirit or what you are actually made of, right? And she said, if everybody who's done it is doing this, then I think that I needed to try it. And once I tried it, things in my life started to change.
Right.
And so even though I don't know the mechanism and even though I don't know how it works, sorry guys, I'm getting excited. Even though she says I don't know how it works, she advised the people who are reading her books to do it. So
That's awesome.
So I did, right? I downloaded Headspace. I tried that. Then I read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That was my second book, right?
Okay.
And in there he talks about how when he's the most busy, when the things are in his life that are the hardest, he spends more time meditating because it allows him the capacity to reach into that space of knowledge where we as people don't have normal access.
Right.
And then he can extract ideas, he can extract the jewels, the things that Einstein figured out, the things that
Tesla and all
the geniuses of the world, the Kanye Wests and the Tupacs, right? The things that when they pierced into that space of art and truth, what they grabbed out of it, that's what I'm talking about, right? And so I realized, okay, I'm going to do this now. Remember, I'm still suffering through drinking every day. So I'd wake up in the morning hungover and then I'd meditate. Try meditating with a hangover. It's the worst.
Yeah.
Right? That's just not going to work, but I did it.
Right.
I just did it. I was like, you know what? I have these problems. I'm going to do the things that I'm supposed to do, and maybe things will change. Guys, all of it fell away. And not only did my life completely transform, did my business started to take off, did I meet my business partners, right? That I come into contact with Hunter and Josiah.
And you wouldn't have been able to be partners with them, nor would they have wanted to work with you if you were still that person.
Hell no. No, they wouldn't have been. I think that they were starting to see me morph. They were starting to see me get into a better spot. Again, when we first got together, I was still. I may not have had all of the hang-ups, the alcoholism or whatever that was gone. Right. But I still had the temper. I still had things about me that were just not my favorite, right? And nor other people's favorite. And so with the introspection, with the growth, you start to understand the reasons why you act like a dick, right? I started to realize, man, I feel really bad about myself because there's no other reason why I'm beating this poor courier up. Why am I verbally abusing this guy who's just here to do his job? Right? Unless I feel really bad about me.
Ooh, so here's
I could relate to that.
Here's something I got a question about. So literally yesterday, I'm driving down. I'm probably 10 cars behind the car on the front line to turn right on a red light, right? I'm way down. But I'm parked in front of where people come out for a shopping center, and this guy wants to get around me, and I'm kind of paying attention to what's in front of me, and I'm listening to music or whatever. This guy starts honking at me and flipping me off.
Right.
So my response was, I was actually in a really good mood. I wasn't grumpy. I'm generally a pretty positive person. But I stopped, put the car in park, rolled my windows down so he could, I just go, I'm not moving. Right? And it got escalated to the point where, it got pretty nasty. Nobody got out of their car. Mm-hmm. But I was just dude, if you're going to just he's honking at me I should have known he was coming. And I'm I'm in my lane, right? I'm justifying my anger, I'm justifying all this stuff, and it escalates to a point where it's fingers are being thrown, cuss bombs are being thrown at each other, and then whatever, the light turns green and I go. 5 minutes later, I'm what did I just accomplish?
Nothing, right?
Right. So
throws your energy off.
So do you feel meditating and visualization will ultimately help overcome those kind of moments?
Absolutely. I have way fewer of them now. That they still happen. In fact, I had one with Jesse maybe like 6 months ago. And again, like they happen. They'll be less and less frequent.
Got it.
Right? What I think meditating allows you to do is create the space between. So I look at us like biological meat sacks, right? Just you're a biological meat sack. I'm a biological meat sack. So I have my eyes perceive, my ears hear, my eyes perceive an asshole in the car doing asshole stuff, right?
Right. Yeah.
And now all of a sudden what happens when I have that sensory perception, it generates feelings in my body, right? The next reaction is feelings. The butterflies, that feeling of agitation, that escalation that happens in my belly, I have one of two things to do now. I can observe it and label it and say, wow, I just noticed myself get extremely agitated and have that funny little butterfly sensation in my gut, and then let it pass. Or I can identify with it and get sucked into it. Now that doesn't mean that you're a bad person because you get sucked into it, but you do degrade yourself.
Right.
You degrade yourself to that person's level of mud.
Right.
I mean, that guy's in the mud, right? And his whole life is probably in the mud because he's coming at you like this.
So I'm glad you bring up mud. So one of these analogies, and I've always noticed this about you, and I want to become more like that. One of the things I use as an analogy is a pig in the mud. Mm-hmm. So there are people in our lives, we all know them, we all have them in our lives, whether it's friends, family, whatever, that are like pigs in mud, which means they enjoy being in the mud, they enjoy having things with them, they're almost happy being unhappy.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Chaos, like they can't be happy.
Right, so what happens is you take that pig, you wash him down, you solve his problems, whatever, you open the back door, and what happens to that pig?
They run into the mud.
They run into the mud.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, like you talk about that second choice where you take it and you identify with it and that becomes who you are. It's almost as if some people get stuck in the mud and they feel the comfort of not growing. Maybe I guess there's two different types of comfort, right? There's comfort of I feel progression, that there's comfortable, I feel good with my life. But there's something weird about that identifying with the negative that people also feel comfort in, of like a warm blanket of hate and anxiety.
Oh, it's so much easier, dude.
Right.
Bro, it's like, have you ever trolled on the internet in your life? Like, go back.
Yeah.
So I've done it a few times, right? So when you do it, right? When you troll, when you're like, meow, 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 and you do that like trolly thing, right? And like you get a like dopamine hit.
Oh, for sure.
Right? And then what ends up happening is that you get addicted to that dopamine.
It's for
you get
real.
addicted to being a douche.
Because it creates a thing, right?
Yeah.
When you're in a group of gossips,
Right.
right? And everyone's like, oh, this person's just so bad, and then you identify with that. Yeah, they're so bad, and then they're like, they're so bad, and now you have common unity in like in the shittiness of someone else.
Right.
Like all you've done is like traded negative dopamine hits back and forth, and now your brain is like craving more of it.
To talk shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can totally do it on the flip side as well.
So let's get into some specifics.
Okay.
Okay. Because I'm lucky I get to travel the country with you. We're all lucky we get to hang out with you, and
I'm lucky to be with you guys. So I feel so happy that we all feel so lucky to be around each other.
Dude, it's the best.
Yes.
It's the best. So here's my question: actionable items for people that are watching, right? So our typical audience member is somebody who's trying to break into wholesale. In fact, one of the guys asked a question on the Instagram, like, "Hey, I just found out about wholesaling a week ago."
Welcome, bro.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, and I don't even know if he's realizing like who he's currently watching in terms of the company that you and your partners have built. A lot of that has to do with visualization. That has to do with, the universe has delivered to you what you were ready for and all that kind of stuff. But let's say I'm an audience member watching this show. Actionable items to utilize a visualization on that will get them better into their business and relationships with their wife, husband, whatever it is.
Business partners, colleagues,
Right.
all the above.
Let's take that audience member. What are 3 or 4 good items? You mentioned door knocking.
Yes.
Maybe it's cold calling. Maybe it's talking to your spouse.
So-
Maybe it's whatever.
So identify 3 areas of growth in your life that you want right now.
Okay.
Right? Let's call that work. Let's call that physical, and let's call that relationships.
Okay.
Okay? Because I think that can encompass the majority of our lives, right?
Right.
So write down you guys talked about, the quarterly goals or the rocks, right?
Yeah.
Write down your rock goals, right? Like write down, okay, so I'm in a relationship, let's just say relationships, right? I'm in a poor relationship with a family member that I want to change. I want my relationship with my brother to become better. So let's say that. So you've now said, okay, I'm intentional about my relationship with my brother to become better. You don't have to worry about how that's going to happen. Because what we get stuck with is like, it can never happen because blah, 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 blah. Guys, the world, the universe, God, the energy source, whatever you want to call it, is so much stronger than your stupid excuses that and has access to everyone's heart.
Right.
So
Right? So let's just say that you begin with a picture in your mind of what that looks like.
Right.
Like have a future of what you and your brother walking together in laughter, in communion, in joy. Visualize that. Now let's go to the work aspect, right? You're just beginning wholesale. The person who's just beginning wholesale. Pick your method of lead gen, right? So we talked about cold calling, door knocking. Let's use that. So if you want to do cold calling or you want to door knock, visualize that successful thing happening. Visualize it happening, right? Visualize you door knocking on the door and being like the person saying rop 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 and you being rop 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 and then them opening the door and you getting in and then like ultimately getting a contract signed. That is something to do. Yes.
So I actually have a question on this. You're much more of an expert. That's why I've been a lot more quiet. I like to learn and observe, and I'm not going to talk about stuff I don't know as much as you.
I want to hear from you as much as.
But my question is, should you visualize that? So you're obviously going to get a ton of no's. These people are going to get a lot of no's. Do you want to visualize how all those no's get you to a yes? Is that something? Because, or do you just want to focus on only the good stuff? But because there's going to be a lot of no's before you get that yes. So I'm asking you, like, I don't know the right answer.
I think just focus on the positives.
Okay.
Right? Like you want to focus on the outcome you want and then get out into the world and realize that there'll be no's in between.
Right.
But just visualize that positive outcome.
I always focus on the positive. I didn't know if there was a right or wrong way to do that.
No,
so that's just a question I had because you're a much bigger expert than I am on this, so I didn't know.
Jared Vidal says hi, by the way, guys.
Hey, Jared, what's
What's up, Jerry?
I can tell you that Jared Vidalis, right? He visualized his muscles growing into the size there. He probably visualized that he would be in a relationship with a fantastic, gorgeous woman who was a business behemoth, and look what happens, right? So like
You're welcome, bud.
The facts of that are true. Like these things you can actually do. And so we talked about relationships, we talked about business, and then body, right? So guys, look, I may not look like the perfect picture of physical health. I'm overweight, but I can say this: I treat my body very well. I exercise 7 days a week. I meditate 7 days a week. I do everything I could possibly do, and then whatever genetics are for me, they manifest themselves into the gut and whatever else, the chubby cheeks and all that's there. It's just like, that's just what it is. But I live my life very much in a routine, very segmented way so that I know that I can directly measure my results. When I screw up in any of those aspects, the result that I get is always the same, not what I want.
Right.
Every time. Every single time. So like, get out there and try it. It's not frou-frou. Once you start doing it, you start to see the benefits. For me, my relationships with my kids got better, right? I felt more present for them to even want to talk to me. Charisma started FaceTiming me more, and I started answering.
Love it.
Right? Because like you don't want to answer your kids' FaceTime if you're in your backyard drinking a beer and you kind of have fuzzy eyes. That's not the time you want to have a chat with your kid, right?
Right.
So what about being around the right people too? So this is weird that we decided to do this today. I had 2 people reach out to me yesterday saying how much I've changed. And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, they couldn't really explain it. They just said you give so much more. you're doing all these different things. Like you just seem to care more. And I think it's about the relationships that I've formed with, you know, the group that we have. And I've always wanted to become this person, and I think I internally always was, but I had to have you guys show a lot of that to me. Or maybe it's, I guess, how would you explain that?
Here's what I feel, and I might get some flack on the internet for this, but I'm going to say it anyways. I believe that we are electromagnetic beings. Okay, that if you go to the hospital and they hook up a monitor to your heart, what are they monitoring? Do you know?
No. I
Electrical impulse.
don't. Okay.
Okay.
That's why looks
Yeah,
the way it is. It's an electrical impulse, right?
Okay.
Where there's an electrical impulse, there is electromagnetism.
Okay.
Where there's electromagnetism, there is a field. Okay. It creates a field
Okay.
in your heart and your brain.
Okay.
So the contents of your mind and the contents of your heart create an electromagnetic field.
Gotcha.
So when you and I are in contact with each other, we're sitting across face to face.
Yeah.
My field is affecting your field, and your field is affecting my field. What ends up happening is the stronger, the higher, the better frequency is what things resonate to. They become each other.
But now I don't need you guys to be around
No,
to act
because
that
you
way.
have become that.
Okay.
You are embodying it because you've literally changed your field. Your field has become call it a culmination of all of the positivity and all the personalities and all the vibrations of the people around you.
Right.
That's what's happened.
Howard Grant's got a couple things. By the way, guys, the guy who's switching between the cameras, I don't know if he's actually switching that often or not, but is Howard Grant, good friend of all of us.
Howard, thank you so much, buddy.
Thank you, Howard. Appreciate you.
Love you, Howard.
He made a couple comments I want to bring to light.
Okay.
Meditation is practicing introspection. If you're better at introspection, you make better decisions, right? Which is basically what you were talking about earlier. So he was just putting a stamp of approval. How do you stay intentional is Howard's question.
You have to do it every day, right?
Routine?
Every day. It's routine. One thing you guys will always know about me, and it's like I'm unapologetic of my routine, right? I'm like,
Today,
you are.
I'm doing something, I'll hit you later. And
Yeah.
that's all you said. I called you, declined. You were nice enough to say, I'm doing this.
Yep.
I'll call you later.
Yeah.
And I know I always forget in the morning, like
It's
8 to 10, don't bug Jamil.
He's doing his thing, right? And it's like, and I have my regimen. I think every single day, Howard, you have to practice again. You have to pretend that you die daily.
Interesting.
You have to die daily in your heart, in your life. And that means that all of the pains of yesterday, they die with it. All of the joys of yesterday, they died with it.
Start all
so
over.
you start fresh every single day. Die daily. And wake up and know that you die that day too.
I like it.
So this is like, you've got to do
That's
everything
great.
you can in this day to be who you'd want to be on the last day of your life.
So I'll call that one of the golden nuggets of the episode. for
Hey,
sure.
we've got Brandon Simmons is watching, Ryan Harper's watching. Guys, for our friends that are watching, really appreciate and love all of you guys. Anybody has questions for Jamil, please throw them out here. So Annie has a question.
Hi, Annie.
A question I saw posted somewhere that got me thinking a lot was, where would I be, who would I be without your excuses? Oh my gosh, interesting. I like that question a lot.
So where you would be isn't a safe place, Annie. Like, excuses are the subconscious protectors. Those are the things that we use. Those are the mechanisms that we use to stay comfortable.
Right. So, for example, not going to the gym. I was busy today. I did this. I did that.
Yeah.
You always have an hour.
You always do. But the excuse says, oh, my leg hurts. Oh, I'm this or that, or whatever the excuse is. I'm too tired, or I had such a rough day yesterday. I just need to relax. Leads you to the comfort of the couch, leads you to the bag of Lay's, leads you to watching terrible mindless television, leads you to a shit day.
Right. Like my best days, honestly, are when I get home from work, instead of going to the television and just numbing myself, is I like to go to the hot tub and put on an Audible, and it keeps my brain working and thinking thoughts I've never thought before and different perspectives from different people. And I think just being curious is so important too, and mindful and constantly learning.
That's amazing. I love that you take a action of pleasure, which would be hanging out in the hot tub with your hot girlfriend, and you add on to that education and like self-development,
Yeah.
which is like, guys, you don't have to be, whoever told you that growth or spiritual development or learning had to be painful,
Yeah,
they,
it's not
they
hard.
screwed up.
It feels amazing.
Yeah.
Like it's
Something interesting. So Bobby and I were doing a show this morning with Rylis, the probate attorney, right?
Yep.
yeah.
And Bobby made a comment. And he said, I wish more people in my industry, so Bobby is into BMX and all that kind of stuff. He says it's almost cool to not put yourself out there. Like it's almost cool to not be vulnerable, and it's corny to be vulnerable. So a part of it is, here we are, 3 grown men talking about things that are embarrassing, things that we need to be vulnerable about to understand and have introspection so that we can grow together. So I think, honestly, the cool thing is growing together. So what I would do, a couple of guys in here have asked some questions. I want to jump into them. I'm laying the groundwork for the question, though, is finding 2 or 3 people in your local community that are, it doesn't matter if they're behemoths in wholesale or if they're just starting out like you, but find 2 or 3 people that you can grow with and be embarrassingly honest with, so that you can pull all the excuses down and have people that hold you accountable. You and Steve Trang.
That's literally what I was trying to like
You
grab
and
your
Steve
attention
Trang,
for.
I'm
Your
watching
vulnerability.
I'm watching from an outside point of view. You guys have an accountability meeting. What's the purpose behind that accountability meeting?
Real talk. So I know things about Steve that Steve won't share to the world. Steve knows things about me that I don't share to the world, right? Some of my hopes, some of my dreams, some of the little, that little hope certificate, or the thing that I really deeply in the back of my mind want to see come to fruit.
Yeah.
I've vocalized to a very few people, right?
Right.
Now that reality or that thing happening is definitely in my heart, and I want to see it happen, but I have to speak it for it to ever get birth.
Right.
Right. So Steve is my birthing chamber.
So speaking of that, we were actually talking about something different. I wanted to talk about the vulnerability that you showed at the mastermind that we had.
Yeah.
That's what really,
Yeah.
I felt like once your presentation happened, that's what tore down everybody's walls. And we have a lot of big players. We have
Social glue. You're the guy that brings out the energy of people.
but it was that was the shift.
But what I think happened is I got up in front of all you guys and I undressed myself.
Oh, 100%.
Right.
Basically, yeah.
No, you literally like, I am here vulnerable. I am
Yeah.
here seeking help and guidance from people that I trust and people that I admire.
I remember Carlos was in the room, and as I was speaking, he Carlos is a gregarious and very vocal dude,
Yeah.
and he's like, you keep looking at me when you say this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, Carlos, the reason I look at you and say this because this is something you do that I admire so much. And he was like, bang. No, because it was true,
I
right?
know, I
Subconsciously,
remember.
I'm staring at Carlos.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this on purpose, but I'm just like,
Right.
Your energy is going to him.
and he's feeling that, and he's like, whoa, like, what are you doing, Jamil? And then I'm like, this is why I'm doing it. He's like, great. And then he ate it up, right? And then that became, it was like, you ever watch that movie with Denzel Washington where that spirit gets passed on by touch?
Yes.
What's that called?
Is it deja vu or something?
No, it's like, is it Fallen?
I can't remember.
I don't remember.
Anyways, but that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like you can literally, you can share that spirit of vulnerability, you can share that spirit of trust with the people around you, and it's one of those things that very easily gets transmitted and doesn't have to leave its host for it to be in another person.
Super cool. 3 questions.
Yes.
Claudio, shout out to Claudio, by the way. Claudio is always on my Sunday service.
What's up, bro?
He's always on my IG lives. He's always making really good comments. His questions are honestly some of the best ever. Jamil, what is your number one personal characteristic that you think attributed to your success as America's number one wholesale investor? I would say, honestly, 2 things from my perspective. Social glue, being able to attract anybody at any time, having a personality that when you walk into a room, you can feel the aura, right? It's weird. It's like you're an X-Men, like you have this power that radiates the room.
funny.
It's cool. Number 2, I would say that you have allowed the universe to fill in the blessings of good partners and good friends and good employees. Like your guys' employees are amazing. Your entire staff is amazing. Your partners are amazing. It doesn't mean it doesn't come with its own challenges.
Sure.
But the universe allowed those types of people to come into your world, and those people are building blocks for you guys to build a kingdom together.
Correct.
And it probably started with visualization and
100%.
meditation.
It started with the conversations you had about
Yeah.
reading the book, and
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden your business excelled, and the right people came into your life because
Right.
you allowed the universe to
And
do
the
that.
negative things in my life fell off.
Right.
Right? Like there was a time, I think you guys remember, this was probably 2 years ago, where I was like, hey guys, I think I'm only going to have alcohol twice a week. And then everyone was like, thanks for sharing, Jamil. But like, that's an accomplishment, I guess, right? And then about a year after that, I was like, hey guys, I don't think I really like to drink very much anymore. And then it's gone.
Right.
And like, you know what I mean? Now it's like, I don't even want to ever,
Right.
because I feel like, it's gross. I'm going to feel terrible tomorrow. I don't, so I think the thing to answer Claudio's question is, I would visualize the things I want, right? And that personal magnetism that you talk about, that I just allowed it to naturally come out.
Magneto, bro.
Magneto.
That's
Wholesale Magneto.
Gosh damn, bro. Aura Magneto.
That's funny.
So 2 questions. Ryan Harper, good friend of the show.
What up, Ryan?
What's up, Ryan?
Love you, buddy.
In my opinion, for a long time, he was Propelio. Like, I look at Propelio and I think Ryan Harper.
He's awesome.
Okay?
Yeah, great guy.
I don't know if you guys know this, but Ryan Harper has recently made a decision to leave Propelio.
I didn't know that.
Okay? I've had a couple conversations with Ryan, good friend of the show, good friend of all of us.
Yes.
His question is, I'm newly unemployed and on my path to becoming my own entrepreneur. I have tremendous support with tons of people offering help. How do I determine what I need help with, and how do I ask for it?
So I think the first thing, Ryan, is that you're newly self-employed, my friend. You're not unemployed. You are
Yes.
newly self-employed. You got to recontextualize stuff, bro. What you did was free yourself, right? So the first things first, you've got a support group, and you've got people around you that are running it at the highest levels. Pick the part of the business, or pick the thing that you get excited about. So I would brainstorm the aspects, whether it be wholesale, whether it be subject to stuff, whether it be the media portion, like bro, do you know how many of us require media services? And like,
So
there are
many.
Like, look, Jesse got rich supplying the picks to the gold to the guys digging for gold, right?
Right.
Like, or the roadmap or whatever. Like,
Right.
he
He does dig gold himself, but he realized, why don't I help you with a pick and an axe to go dig
Absolutely.
your own
But
gold?
Right.
so can I add to that just a little bit too? Is I think he should internally decide what he wants to do.
Yes.
And then literally, this is what I did, was I told everybody what I wanted to do, because that's what you're going to attract. If you keep talking about what you want to work on
Right.
and what you're going to do, like you're very passionate about creative financing. What are you talking about all the time? Creative financing.
Golf and
And
Chick-fil-A.
in Chick-fil-A. But no,
life,
you literally, and then you're attracting people that want to do that. Like, for him to figure out what he wants, to start telling people what he wants, and those people are what he's trying to do, and they'll come to him. He will, the whole energy thing we're talking about.
100%.
What I really like about what Ryan's doing, so Ryan and I had a conversation. We'll jump into another question. I know this we're getting into a little bit of a wormhole, but
Do I have questions on there too?
no, because what happens is people, unless you're telling them to ask questions, they won't.
Okay.
Right? Because they know nobody's manning this. If that
Hey,
makes sense.
Instagram, if you have questions,
If you guys
are there
have,
people
if
watching?
you guys have
Yeah, I
questions,
can
yeah,
hold
there's
this.
people watching. Yeah, come on, bro. You're Jay Damji. Come on. So if you guys have questions, obviously I'm on the Facebook, so people can see these cameras. I'm in
Okay.
that group. So Ryan and I have a conversation. He says, I know I'm really good at promoting other people's events, and I know I'm good at the technology part. Like, I was watching his YouTube channel. He has this early morning show, and I start watching it on YouTube Live. And I go, dude, I love this show. It's amazing. And right there, he calls me. He has his phone set up in a way that when I call it, the audio is so good, because he has his phone going through the live, that when I heard the replay, I was like, dude, it sounds like you had me on the Howard Stern show.
What I just couldn't stop my mind from saying is, Ryan, you are the producer
Right.
of these of these
He
different.
he knows all this cool stuff.
You're
He's
the
so
producer
creative.
extraordinaire, right?
Right.
So what I would do is go through your phone and write down the names and phone, or identify all the people that you would like to do business with. that you could help produce content for, or you could produce live events for, and say, Pace and Jamil, when do you want to come to Dallas?
That's why he called me.
And let me
So he's already getting there.
produce
He's
that
producing an event for us. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Do that with Brent. Do that with RJ. Do that with Elizabeth. Do that with all of the people that you are connected to that are in this business that have a platform or that are looking for a platform, and connect with them and make yourself valuable to them, because you have so much knowledge.
We want to help too. Like, we all like Ryan.
But we need
Yes,
that.
exactly.
It's beyond helping. It's like we're not giving you charity, bro. You're actually providing
you're
the
helping
value.
us.
Yeah, you're the dude helping, man. So just get out there and help us.
Okay, so another special person has another question. We all love Elizabeth.
Hi.
Hey, Elizabeth.
She's a special person. She's another person that I think radiates at a level really close to you and that social
I
glue
think
feeling.
that's why whenever I'm around her, I feel like hyper amplified.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like you guys are two tuning forks. It's like
Yep.
zzz,
Yep.
it's cool. So Elizabeth, she says, I'd like to get your perspective, Jamil. How do you reinvent? How did your reinvention look? What does that process look like, and how do you suggest others begin the journey of reinvention?
Messy. It was super messy. And just be okay being messy, right? It's not perfect. We're human beings. You know, we do things at the time they need to happen.
Right.
And so I think that the biggest problem that we tend to have is that we have a goal and then we get super antsy about not being at the goal, right? I think that know that everything that you're doing right now is exactly what you're supposed to be doing and when you're supposed to be doing it. But having the thought for something more, the reinvention, know that it's going to look really messy. It's going to be messy. It's going to be hard. It's going to be painful. You don't get growth. Like remember when you were a kid and you had growing pains?
Uh-huh.
Right, that's a real thing. When your
never
bones
grew.
grow, so you never.
I never experienced that.
You never experienced growing
I'm just
pains.
kidding.
But when you were a kid and you experienced growing pains, that was your body feeling pain because your bones were growing. The same thing happens to your spirit. The same thing happens to your life. So when you reinvent yourself, don't have a checklist. Don't have a timeline. Don't have hard expectations of yourself. Be kind to you. And then allow the things that you want to happen to flower on their own.
But put stuff into action, like create those steps or those atomic habits or...
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Annie's got a question. So I'm glad Elizabeth asked that question, because Annie, once you start that journey of reinvention, meditation has to find itself in there, right?
Yeah.
So Annie asks a question. If I want to start meditating, where do I start?
My suggestion would be to start from guided meditations.
Like
I think,
like YouTube or something?
yeah, so there's some free apps online or in the App Store.
What would you recommend?
The one that I recommend is Insight Timer. Insight Timer, it's in the App Store, it's free.
Okay.
And then you can get in there and search what you're looking for, right? So say, for instance, you want some guided meditations on abundance. You can just search abundance and there'll be like 1,000 meditations pop up on abundance, and then just kind of search through them and pick which ones resonate with you.
I have a question, personal question. Where's a good place to meditate at?
So I hide in a room that I know I won't be disturbed in. I think you can do it anywhere, but I do it in a part of the house that is less frequently traveled, just so that I don't hear the noise and I can get like really deep. But anywhere is okay. You can meditate in a park. You can meditate in your bed. You can meditate on a swing. You can meditate in a sauna. You can meditate in the shower. I sometimes fill up a tub and meditate in the tub.
So do you sit a certain way? Or are you laying down? I guess let's tell what.
So I got a bad back and my knees hurt and I'm kind of fat. So I like to meditate in a chair.
Okay.
Right? I like to just sit in a chair. I think the keys are have a straight back. Like try to keep a straight back so that your spinal cord is properly aligned.
Yep.
And then really just don't be lazy with it, right? Don't slouch. Just like show up for it. But that's all you got to do. That's all you got to do in terms of physicality.
Okay. We should probably wrap this up soon. Do we have any more questions?
I got like 7 more questions, but you know what? We're at 58 minutes, believe it or not.
Sorry, Zach.
No, this is really, really, really good. I got a lot of good feedback. People love this vibe. I got a lot of wholesale and subject to questions, but I didn't answer them because all 3 of us put out so much content in terms of doing that. So guys, like this show is not always about how to get your first wholesale deal.
Yeah.
Sometimes this show is about how to get your first wholesale deal by not talking about real estate.
Yes. Look, let me just speak to something that kind of bugged me, and I'm going to just say it because I was talking to Pace about this. So on my Instagram, on my stories, for a little while there, I was taking pictures of coffee mugs that I collected around the world, right? Because I like to travel and I buy a coffee mug in every place that I go to. And so that's not mine, but I do like to travel and get coffee mugs. So I would take a picture on my story when I was filling my coffee with a Keurig, and I would just like, hey, got this in Amsterdam, or my nephew made me this, or birthday present, whatever it was, in Dallas with Pace. And I asked the question to people, who wants to see more of my coffee mugs? And 66% of the people, and there was a couple hundred responded.
Yeah.
66% of them said no.
Wow.
Because they're like, I'm not here for your coffee mugs, Jamil. I'm here for your wholesale tips. But guys, I'm still a person.
I knew this was coming. Hey, welcome to social media, buddy.
I'm still a person, okay? So like, you're gonna have to see my coffee mugs if you want my wholesale tips. And I think what Pace is saying is like, we put a lot of content out that helps you, but like this, if you think that this isn't
This is more important.
This is the foundation to your first deal. This is
Right.
the foundation to your scaled business.
Yes.
This is the foundation to your new life. Like, you are so skipping the first step.
That's an interesting thing. So a lot of people talk about, like, a lot of the questions we get are, how do I find a partner? How do I do this? How do I find acquisition managers? Do you know how I find my acquisition managers?
They come to you.
They come to me.
They come because you attract them.
I would like to say that's who I naturally am, but same thing on my Instagram this morning. I was talking about how the number one question I get is what? Why do you help so many people? And I'm like, I hate to say it, but it's not altruistic. It's not just to help people. It's because I know that there's fruits at the end of that. Those fruits are not like bags of money, but those fruits are typically really good people coming back to me by me pushing good energy out.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So what I'm doing there is I'm trying to attract good energy back. That's what I get out of it.
Your business partner came from
Dude, and our relationships and it's the tuning fork. It's like once you find the vein and you're flowing really, really fast, it's like you never want to lose that positive energy.
100%.
Right. Dude, thank you.
Thank you, guys. This is a subject I don't get to talk a lot about. I try to, make a video here and there on my Instagram talking about it. But it's like my coffee cups, right? No one really cares.
So
I
actually
a little
think,
pissed off that we don't get those anymore.
I think people care, and I also think that we'll give you all this raw footage, put it all over your Instagram. I think people need to know this stuff.
Right.
I agree.
That's important.
Thanks for providing a platform to share it. Love you guys.
Love you too.
All right, you want to do the outro real quick?
Nope, that's you, Jesse.
All right, guys. This is Jesse, Pace, and sometimes Jamil on Saturday.
Anytime you guys have questions, you guys have people you want us to bring on board, especially people in our own local network.
Or not.
Or not. Sometimes it's just going to be Pace and Jesse, but we're going to have guests, and sometimes Jamil. So guys, let us know any questions you have. Maybe what we'll do is we'll do a show at some point with somebody that got their first deals, and we can specifically deep dive on how to do your first wholesale deal. But it's going to be different every week. The topic's going to be different every single week.
Yeah, just switch it up.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.
Peace.